bring you the best guests. I always say our guests know where the rubber meets the road. They're not these paid talking heads, okay? And one of them joins us right now. Dr. Russel Surasky joins us. He's a board-certified neurologist, board-certified addiction medicine medical director of Bridge Back to Life, and executive director of Surasky Neurological Center for Addiction and Mental Health. I probably need all of your services, Dr. Surasky. First and foremost, I have mental problems, I have neurological problems, and I may have addiction problems. And you see, I'm going to be a good candidate because I'm already admitting there may be a problem, which is the first step, right?
John, it's great to be back. And I just want to say thanks. Thanks for sticking your neck out, speaking the truth. You really walk the walk. And, I had no idea that your father was an NYPD officer. I just learned that. And my heart goes out to you and all the police in this country for what's happening. It's a disgrace. I'm optimistic. I believe things will change after November. But thank you.
So I'm a numbers guy, Doc, right? I've been on Wall Street for 30 years. I always say, let's have some fun with numbers. You know what I mean? And especially when you work for a public company, basically, tell me what number you want on the bottom right, and I'll fill in all the other boxes. You know what I'm saying? You want a growth of 5%, you want a diminishment of deterioration of growth of 2%, whatever it is, right? I can make the numbers work. So I feel like the CDC has been playing this game on us for a while, okay? Do you know, would you be shocked? You know this. The CDC puts out a estimated death toll in America every year, right? And it comes down to a certain amount of deaths, 7,000 deaths per day or something, right? And they track it on the CDC website with a column that says percent of estimated blah, blah, whatever they call it, right? So if they say no matter what happens, 7,000 people are going to die every day, right, of anything. Anytime it's under 100%, we're doing good. We're beating it, right? You know, there were only 14 days since February where we were over 100% of the CDC estimate. So I take that 2 weeks over 100 as the COVID deaths. And it seems to me like their numbers are now saying 6% of the people only had a single morbidity. And now you're saying 85% of the tests that are given that were positive are actually negative. What's going on with the numbers?
John, you're right, and that's a fact. And I'm surprised we're not hearing it by more people than you. But it's very unfortunate. But let's break this down for your audience because this is a massive, massive story which everyone needs to know. I mean, essentially, the COVID-19 nasal swab test, the one that's being done close to 100,000 times in this country a day, is proven now to be a sham, and that's not an exaggeration. After your nasal swab is taken, it's then analyzed by a computer. And when the computer thinks there could possibly be a virus on there, it amplifies the sample over and over again in what's called cycles. This is so that the computer software can get a closer look at what it's detecting. Now, normally, scientists will stop the computer after a certain number of cycles of amplification because they know if the computer has to keep going, the test is negative. But with COVID-19, surprise, they didn't set any scientific standard. So labs across this country let their computer software just keep cycling and cycling nasal swabs until the computer eventually came out with a positive result. And when they reported the test as positive, they intentionally left out that the computer cycle had cycled so many times. So scientists just now went back and analyzed all these positive tests in New York, Massachusetts, and Nevada, I think was the third state, and it showed across the board 85-90% of people that tested positive were not infected, they weren't contagious, they should have never been quarantined. 90%, John. I mean, if that's not a bombshell, I don't know what
that is a bombshell. And so I like to try to put it in like layman's terms. So if you are looking for a black spot in a diamond, right, and you look at it on the surface, it's like, oh, that looks pretty good, right? And then you take out like a jeweler's loop and you look a little closer and say, I might see something there. And then you take like an electron microscope and you go in deeper to the bottom of the facet and there is a tiny little black spot. You say, this is no good. It's the same thing, right? They keep magnifying in until they find one molecular speck of something that looks like a coronavirus, and they say yes, right?
Precisely.
All right. This is every time I say, we had a clip of this Dr. What was that name? Dr. Yen? No, Dr. Yen. Lee Ming Young, okay, and she's saying that she worked in this Wuhan lab and
Sure.
she has done all this genetic testing, and that there's no possible way this could be naturally occurring because the bat virus that it was used for can't be replicated to humans. So they had to do some kind of manipulation on it, right? And every time I talk about real doctors like you and real scientists, and I come across anything that goes against the public narrative, they actually ban these videos from Facebook on me. But I absolutely positively believe, I have a few patents myself, I have some great patent lawyers, and people tell me that there's a coronavirus patent out there for like 7 or 8 years now, maybe 10 years out there. So you can't get a patent on something that's naturally occurring.
Sounds right. I mean, I haven't reviewed the patents or the studies, but I would not be shocked.
So let me ask you this. I love going into the testing, and I think it's all a sham. I think it's all been a crock the whole time. And the numbers to me come back to how many days in this whole pandemic were we over 100% of the CD's estimated daily deaths? And that could be attributed to COVID, if you ask me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a new thing. But more importantly, I know you're an expert in addiction and psychotherapy to help people deal with addictions and stuff like that. I'm hearing more and more people tell me, oh, so-and-so's nephew was clean for 5 years and now, he's on the crap again. And this kid, the mother and father haven't seen him in 5 days. Should they call the cops? What should they do? I really believe the death rate and the recidivism into addictions is so much more of a killer than the pandemic.
John, 4 months ago, Trump said the cure can't be worse than the problem. And he was exactly right, because that's what this is. The pandemic, from my view and my experience out there in the field, treating patients day in and day out, is that the cure has become worse. The pandemic is the staggering increase in mental health and drug addiction relapses. That's what's going on now. So the risk of COVID actually hurting people is very low, but the terrible risks and outcomes from the lockdowns is very high.
I think the Trump administration has been doing things to try to attack the opioid issue in different ways. Not, there's still not enough, but this as good as anyone. So give us some idea on this. But I would say over the last 10 years, the number of opioid deaths compared to the number of COVID deaths is probably 20x.
Absolutely.
What kind of numbers of kids are dying from opioids? And the government, doesn't take a full-throated approach to going after opioids.
Well, first and foremost, your viewers should know that all the illicit opiates that people are dying from overdoses are all coming through the southern border. They all make their way through that border. So the border has to be restricted, or these drugs will keep pouring into this country. And us, doing our best to treat everybody is not enough. We need to stop the fentanyl and the heroin from pouring into this country, into our communities, and causing these massive overdoses. Secondly, the Trump administration did pass some sweeping reform, massive funding for treatment, for people to make treatment more accessible for them in recovery, and knock down these barriers for prior authorizations for medications, which we know save lives for people that are actively addicted.
Yeah. Hey, Doc, where are you located?
I'm on Long Island in New York.
You're in Long Island. I got to tell you, I get involved in community stuff, and my dad was a cop. My mom runs a nonprofit, so we always kind of were giving back and trying to help the community in a lot of ways. And people in my community, they think I'm some kind of like activist or something. And people call me with all kinds of things. Hey, can I get a speed bump on my block? I need a stop sign on the corner. But a lot of my friends always call me and say, hey, so-and-so's nephew or kid is all screwed up. Where should they take him? And every place I know in Florida is a sham. Anything I've ever heard, most of them, I'm sure there's good operators out there, but most of them are shams. And people from New York say, well, New York, they don't take the insurance or this or that. Do you guys have a place where people can go? Because I trust you. I think you're a good man, and I would advocate for people to go to you. But do you guys have a place where people can go where they take insurance and help people?
Absolutely, John. I'll tell you. There's a myriad of different places and confusion out there for the public, but I'm going to be very definitive with you because I think this can save lives as information. There is something called OASAS, OASAS, Certified Treatment Centers. And if you go online and you go to the OASAS website, you can find...
Hey, all right. Hey, Doc, listen. Can you hang out with us for like 5 minutes? I want to spend a few more minutes on this. I got an open segment after this. Can you hang out with us? We'll talk about this and give people some education. Sure. Don't go anywhere. If you got issues, you need to learn something. Stay right there.